where you can see protesters on the scene of where ICE agents shot and killed a woman earlier this morning. Now, up in the upper left corner, you can see the woman's car. According to a statement from the ICE agency there in Minneapolis, there was a massive law enforcement presence at the scene. This is along 34th Street and Portland Avenue. And as we continue along here, in that statement to our sister station, Fox 9, ICE says officers were conducting an operation when protesters started blocking officers' paths. The statement further says that the woman weaponized her vehicle and tried to run officers over, and the officer, fearing for his life, fired defensive shots. Again, according to that statement from ICE, the FBI will now take over the investigation, and Minneapolis's police chief says the woman did not appear to be the target of the investigation, but rather a protester who was near all of this as it was happening. Again, if you're just joining, in the upper left corner is the woman's car and where this investigation is centered, and you can see protesters gathered around the scene there in Minneapolis. I'd like to let you listen in to Minneapolis's Mayor Jacob Frey. He has a different take on the situation.
There's a lot of information that is swirling around right now, and we collectively are going to do everything possible to get to the bottom of this, to get justice, and to make sure that there is an investigation that is conducted in full. But what we do know is that a 37-year-old woman is dead and that she was shot by ICE. We've dreaded this moment since the early stages of this ICE presence in Minneapolis. Not only is this a concern that we've had internally, we've been talking about it. They are not here to cause safety in this city. What they are doing is not to provide safety in America. What they are doing is causing chaos and distrust. They're ripping families apart. They're sowing chaos on our streets, and in this case, quite literally killing people. So they are already trying to spin this as an action of self-defense. Having seen the video of myself, I want to tell everybody directly, this was an agent recklessly using power that resulted in somebody dying, getting killed. As soon as it happened and we learned of the incident, we had several priorities. The first, of course, was to get the victim to the hospital and to get care as soon as possible. To the family, I'm so deeply sorry. There's nothing that I can say right now that's going to make you or your relatives or the friends of the victim feel any better. There were, I believe, 2 Minneapolis police officers that responded and were in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. The second was to get ICE off of the scene. There were dozens, if not hundreds, of ICE and federal officers that were there at the time. Having them there was only causing more chaos. Having them there was only making a difficult situation even more problematic, and one that, yes, they created themselves.
That is Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey briefing on the situation just moments ago there as to what happened after ICE agents shot and killed a woman. This happened again in Minneapolis as ICE agents were carrying out a investigation there, an operation, they said, and according to a statement, the agents say that a woman tried to weaponize her vehicle. But as you heard from Minneapolis's mayor, he says that wasn't the case, and he feels that agents were abusing their power. This is obviously a developing story. You see live images there in the upper right and bottom corner of your screen. Protesters there in the bottom and the woman's car in the upper right. So this is a developing situation. We are going to continue to keep you updated. In the meantime, we have a few other local stories we want to continue to follow here in the Atlanta area. As we continue, I will check back in on the Minneapolis story. If you guys have anything else you want to see, put it in our TikTok or YouTube chats. Let us know what's going on and we'll check in with you. In the meantime, I want to get out now to our Doug Evans Evans, who's been following a story where an Amazon driver was shot while trying to deliver holiday packages. Doug, just a horrible situation.
Yeah, the driver, let's be clear, the driver wasn't shot, Ariel. She was shot at while trying to make a delivery in the town of Moreland in Coweta County. And I didn't know this, but I guess Amazon can make deliveries as early as 4:45 in the morning, and that's what happened just before the holidays. This driver was trying to make a delivery, she told authorities, and she saw some dogs in the yard and said, no way, not going in that yard. And so she was beginning to mark the package undeliverable when she heard shouting from the front porch of the home. And she's parked out on the street, according to the Coweta County Sheriff's Office. And so before she knows it, there are 3 shots that ring out. And she gets out and she says, Amazon delivery, Amazon delivery. And then the guy shoots 3 more times. So deputies did respond. They talked to the Amazon driver. They talked to the homeowner there. And they arrested the homeowner for reckless conduct. Now, he says, and his name is Timothy Allen Bradley, and this happened on Levi Bradbury Road in Moreland. Bradley tells authorities that, he saw these headlights out there at 4:45 in the morning. They were shining light into his grandfather's bedroom, and he went out to get them to leave because they've had trespassers on their property. And he shouted something, didn't get a response, so he fired 3 times. And then, I guess, fired an additional 3 shots. And deputies warned him, hey, listen, if you have any problems like this in the future, you don't know who's out there, you're concerned, call 911 and we'll come out and handle it. And that's their advice to people today. Anytime you suspect something or have some concern, or there's a suspicious person, suspicious vehicle out there, they tell you to call 911 and let them handle it. So the homeowner there, Ariel, facing charges today for reckless conduct for the shooting at this Amazon driver.
Doug, thanks so much for that clarification and making the story make sense. I can't imagine you're trying to deliver packages, you're trying to do your job, and then out of nowhere you hear gunfire. Crazy situation. Interesting to follow this case as charges have been filed against the homeowner. Before I let you go really quickly, any final questions you have on the story that you'd like to make sense of for viewers?
Well, listen, we're waiting on body cam video tonight for 4, 5, and 6. And we'll have that for you as this story airs on Fox 5. Unfortunately, we didn't have it for you for the 2 p.m. streaming hour. The other thing that I think is interesting is, Ariel, Amazon and Bradley are practically neighbors. There's a 1 million square foot Amazon distribution center right down the road from his house.
Yeah, that's ironic.
Not very neighborly.
No, not at all. Doug, thanks so much for keeping us updated on this story. We'll continue to check in with you as things progress. I appreciate it. Guys, I'd like to continue along here because we know that in Towns County, the GBI has arrested a major and a sergeant with the sheriff's office in 2 separate investigations. And you can take a look at photos of these 2 officers now. Johnny McCoy and Andrew Glass were arrested after joint investigations from the sheriff's office and the state. Both men were also fired. Investigators started looking into a few things, specifically McCoy over the summer after a theft allegation in the Accountability Court program. And authorities say they found discrepancies with some of his home visit reports. McCoy is charged with theft by deception, violation of oath of office, and false statements and writings. The GBI started investigating Glass last month after 2 guns actually went missing, and he is charged with theft by conversion, violation of oath of office, and making false statements. So definitely a story we're going to continue to keep you updated on. But in the meantime, let's move on, because if you have been following what happened at Atlanta's airport, you're taking not a live look, but video from earlier this morning when that landing gear failed. And Tyler Fingert's here to help us make sense of this. So Tyler, I know a lot of people were talking about this. It was a LATAM Airlines flight. Is that
LATAM Airlines flight
LATAM.
from Lima, Peru to Atlanta last night.
So explain what happened for those who are unfamiliar, and let's get into it.
So basically, we know the plane was just finishing up a roughly 7.5-hour journey or 7-hour journey from Peru, so in South America. They were landing here at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. Things were going well up until they touched the ground. There was some turbulence coming in, according to passengers on board the flight. I've read a number of different posts on social media, and basically what those folks were saying was that it was a little bumpy coming in, but when they got to the ground, that's when something really went awry, and it was extra bumpy. They said it felt like a hard landing, and then they just felt like the tires were just kind of like scraping against the ground. And so obviously that is concerning for a lot of people. I mean, if you look at the screen, if we'll make it full, you can see all the police lights that are there. And then we also got some video from some of those passengers who were on board that flight. Basically, we know that this was a very big concern. Right there, you can see the tires of the rear landing gear for that Boeing 767 aircraft. And look at that. The one on the right, you see the guy's legs to the right of that. Those tires are just disintegrated. There's like nothing left of it. And pretty much all of the tires there are exactly like that. From our understanding, possibly all 8 tires burst upon landing here. The FAA says that they're obviously investigating. Luckily, no one was injured. So we heard from passengers last night, but I just got to speak to a retired airline pilot from Delta Airlines. He actually flew this exact type of plane, and he walks me through what he thinks may have happened. Take a listen.
Probably a combination of things. That brakes may have been damaged to some degree when they hit hard, and it stopped the wheels faster than they should have been stopped. More than likely, though, the logic of the auto brake system was confused, and it just locked up all the brakes and caused all 4 tires to blow from the friction with the runway.
Yeah, and so he was telling me during that interview, just within the last couple of hours, he told me that he said those pilots did an amazing job, because a situation like this obviously is out of the ordinary. They are used to landing in wind. We know that on landing there can be obviously some issues with wind playing a role. They're trying to touch down at a certain speed, but if they get hit by a gust of wind, that can obviously throw things off. It could push the plane into the ground a lot quicker than they were expecting. And that does possibly appear to be the case, he was saying. And then that obviously catapulted issues where the brakes may have kicked in more than they should have, or kicked in because they were, the system just thought it was something else. We don't know exactly. That's what he is assuming, just based off what he was seeing and what he has heard about this incident. He said he consulted with another Delta Airlines pilot, another pilot who flies the same plane, and he was saying that they both concur the same thing, that this does appear where the braking system just engaged, and then obviously when you start dragging anything across the ground, that friction is not good for an aircraft, and that obviously, or for plane tire, and that obviously resulted in what happened here. The FAA is investigating, and the good news here is everyone is okay. We also saw some pictures on social media where actually there was damage inside the airplane, where you actually saw the lavatory door come off its hinges,
oh my
which was
goodness.
really shocking. So shocked to a lot of people on board.
Well, and you know, no one wants to hear their landing gear fail as they're trying to get home safely or get to their destination safely. So ultimately, glad no one was hurt. Tyler, thanks for making sense of this, and hopefully we'll get a better understanding as things move forward, if there's anything that could be done to prevent this in future.
It's just wild. This does not happen that often, where a landing gear where you have anywhere from 4 to 8 tires just explode.
Yeah.
Normally it's 1 or 2, not 8, and that's what he was telling me.
Guys, let's move on, because a lot of you are asking about what is unfolding right now as we continue to follow this within our 2 o'clock hour. So I'm going to get you the latest on Venezuela and where we're headed with our oil prices. So let's do that really quickly. And I know a lot of you are asking about Minneapolis. We covered that right at the top of our 2 o'clock hour, and we'll get back and cover that again for those of you who are just now joining the live stream. But you are taking a look as lawmakers were briefed on Venezuela today. They were briefed on the situation, what the president is looking at as we continue to move forward. So while Venezuela's former leader Nicolas Maduro is in jail in New York York City, the United States is actually ramping up its crackdown on the country's black market oil industry. Many Democratic leaders believe that Maduro's arrest was always about oil, and they're trying to get a sense of what comes next. Just this morning, we know U.S. forces boarded and seized 2 sanctioned oil tankers, one in the Caribbean and one in the North Atlantic, known for transporting oil from Venezuela to countries like Iran, Russia, and China. Now, the seizures come just hours after President Trump announced Venezuela is going to be turning over between 30 to 50 million barrels of oil to the United States, and that will be for the U.S. to refine and sell more than $2 billion worth of oil at today's prices. But none of this is going to be easy or quick. Some analysts predict that for Venezuela to increase oil production and output like this, it's going to take until at least early 2030 to get there. The takeover of Venezuela's oil reserves, as you well know, comes after the United States captured the country's illegitimate leader, Nicolas Maduro. There was a dramatic raid over the weekend, and he's now facing drug trafficking charges here in the United States. But some lawmakers are questioning what President Trump's real motivations are. The White House did notify Congress, some members, before the raid, but did not notify all and did not do an official notification process. Officials were briefed, many for the first time today, on this raid. And as we know, some lawmakers have a lot of questions. President Trump plans to meet with oil executives on Friday to discuss new opportunities and ventures in Venezuela. So I'd like to let you listen in. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt held her first briefing of the new year. She talked about new dietary guidelines for the United States public, which we're going to get into later here in our hour. But what everyone really cared about and really wanted to know about, of course, was the unfolding situation in Venezuela. So I'd like to let you listen in onto the beginning of the question and answer with reporters.
Let me just be very clear. This is the first time that I've addressed Venezuela from the podium since being back and since the historic and incredibly successful military operation, law enforcement operation conducted by our United States military that you all saw and the world witnessed last week. The skill, the might of the United States military and our country under the leadership of this president is on full display to the rest of the world. And let's just set the record straight. There isn't another military in the world who could have pulled off this operation. There is not another president in the world or in our nation's history who had the courage to authorize such a mission. And I think the world has taken notice that America is truly back. With respect to Venezuela, the Trump administration, led by Secretary Rubio, the vice president, and the president's entire national security team, is in close correspondence with the interim authorities in Venezuela. We obviously have maximum leverage over the interim authorities in Venezuela right now, and the president has made it very clear that this is a country within the United States, the Western Hemisphere, close by the United States, that is no longer going to be sending illegal drugs to the United States of America. It's no longer going to be sending and trafficking illegal people and criminal cartels to kill American citizens as they have in the past. And the president is fully deploying his peace through strength foreign policy agenda. So we're continuing to be in close coordination with the interim authorities, and their decisions are going to continue to be dictated by the United States of America.
Just one follow-up, when you talk about that leverage there, has the Venezuelan government fully committed to turning over its oil to the United States indefinitely, and what happens if they do not?
Well, as you saw, the president announced last night, this was a deal. This was a deal made by the president and his team with the Venezuelan interim authorities. This will benefit both the American people and the Venezuelan people. And Secretary Wright and the Department of Energy are working with the interim authorities and also with the private oil industry to execute on this historic energy deal that's not only good for the United States, but it's also going to revive the prosperity, the safety, the security of both the United States and Venezuela as well. Ed.
Well, that is White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt speaking from the podium there at the White House briefing room for the first time this year. She went on to talk in depth more about Iran, Venezuela, and we'll continue to keep you updated as new updates come from that. The big question, everyone wondering, what is the future of Venezuela? She didn't fully answer everyone's questions, as you saw a reporter clarifying what she meant. But this is something we're going to continue to follow, because a lot of people have questions of if Venezuela's the starting one point, where do we go next? We know the president has intensified his push for the United States to acquire Greenland one way or another. So let's get into that and talk about it a little bit more, because after the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, Trump, the president, once again floated the idea of taking over this Danish territory, and he's refused to rule out military force. Denmark's prime minister has claimed any strike on Greenland would mean the end of the NATO alliance. But as we continue to look at this situation, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, hinted the United States is going to move to take over the territory sooner rather than later, claiming it's part of a long-term strategy to help NATO allies. Miller says, quote, to protect and defend NATO and NATO interests, obviously Greenland should be a part of the United States, end quote. Now, Democrats on Capitol Hill have pushed back against this, as you might imagine, vowing to stop funding for any military operations aimed at acquiring Greenland. But America's NATO allies at this point are standing behind Denmark, saying the United States has no right to invade Danish territory, while also acknowledging America's role in European security. One thing that NATO leaders have said is that they must do everything to maintain a European and American alliance, and this difficult task is going to require goodwill on all sides. Senate Majority Leader John Thune, a Republican, did tell Fox News today he doesn't think U.S. military action is an option in Greenland. So definitely a story we're going to continue to keep you updated on. I see over 1,000 of you have joined us here on TikTok. So if you have questions about this story, I will try to answer them as they come in. But I'd like to pivot here because a lot of you were asking earlier about the unfolding situation in Minneapolis. We just talked about it at 2 o'clock, as this is live and breaking news. If you're just joining our live stream, you want to know what is unfolding there in Minneapolis. You see in the upper right, protesters gathered at a shooting scene where ICE agents have shot and killed a woman after she reportedly tried to drive her car into agents there on the ground. Now, as we continue here, I want to tell you a little bit more about what we know. This unfolded early this morning, and there was a massive law enforcement presence after the shooting, as you might imagine, along 34th Street and Portland Avenue. And a statement to our sister station, Fox 9, ICE says officers were conducting an operation when protesters started to gather and block officers. And as we continue, you're taking a live look there on the scene. You can see actually some video from just a little bit ago. Okay, this is video. We'll go back to live pictures in just a bit, but we're looking at video to give you an idea as the scene unfolded this morning. But that statement says a woman weaponized her vehicle and tried to run officers over. The officer, according to the statement, fearing for his life, fired defensive shots, ultimately striking that woman and killing her. Minneapolis's police chief says this woman did not appear to be the target of ICE's operation or investigation, but rather a protester there on the scene. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey has called this situation a farce. He has said that he believes ICE was abusing its power, and the mayor says he watched the video of the shooting, and because of his watching the video of the shooting, he does not believe that ICE was acting defensively. That's, again, quoting what the mayor said in a press conference just moments ago, where he was updating along with Minneapolis's chief of police. We also know the FBI is going to take over the investigation, but this is still a developing scene and very volatile. As you can see in the bottom right, there's a crowd of protesters gathered around where this happened. You're taking a look at live aerial footage there. You can see a officer's car blocking the intersection, and people have gathered around where this unfolded. The woman's car was a purple Honda, a small SUV. We saw images of it just a short time ago, but we no longer have those live pictures, but we do have these aerials that you can see of the scene. And then on the ground, there are protesters that have gathered to protest the ICE operations, this shooting, and we'll continue to keep you updated as we learn new information. But guys, coming up, we have a lot to get to, so we need to take a quick break. We have weather coming up with meteorologist Alex Forbes. I'm going to continue to keep you updated on this situation. I see 1,500 of you here on TikTok Live. If you got other questions, I'll do my best to answer them. In the break, I'm going to go through and see if there's anything specific I need to address that you guys really want to know. For those streaming with us here on Fox Local, thanks so much for being here. If you're listening on the radio, we've got a lot of news to cover, and weather is coming up next. Welcome in, everyone. I'm Ariel Onstad. Thanks so much for being here with us live. We've got meteorologist Alex Forbes to talk about our weather forecast. And Alex, I think my hair is giving the indication of what is happening today.
Yep.
It is very humid for January, and I just, here in Atlanta, I'm like, what's going on?
It's warm for January. It's humid for January. I think the proper meteorological term here is just kind of bleh outside. Yeah. We've got the cloud cover. Had the fog this morning.
We did.
It was funny. Paul was joking on the news. So I came back to Atlanta this morning, and I'm not going to lie. When I woke up, I was a little concerned about the fog at the airport.
Yes.
But everything worked out, and here I am. Now, the result is we're seeing breaks in the clouds, and now we're seeing the temperatures begin to warm up, almost into record-breaking territory. 68 is where we stand right now in Atlanta, 67 in Canton. How about Rome already is 71, 72 over in Eatonton, and 65 over in Blairsville. So let's check out what it's going to look like into the evening tonight, all right? I think we could warm a couple more degrees before we see the number begin to fall back down through the 60s and 50s across north and central Georgia. Partly cloudy skies going to be the name of the game. I think we could see some more clouds in the morning hours tomorrow, maybe some patchy fog, but I'm not looking for it to be as widespread as what we saw this morning. Again, that's not to say that you can't see any. 47 in Gainesville tonight, 47 in Athens, 49 in Eatonton, 53 here in the city. That's the urban heat island effect. 50 in Rome and 50 over in Dalton. All right, let's talk about some records. I'm still forecasting 72 this afternoon. We're going to have breaks in the clouds. We're going to be able to see some sun. If we hit that 72, we are going to tie a record for the afternoon. Now, I made some adjustments to Thursday and Friday. Thursday, I brought down to 70, which is still warm, don't get me wrong, but a couple degrees away from that record of 73. And Friday, instead of breaking the record by a degree, and we initially had 73, I now have 71 as the high temperature there. So, I mean, we are finding the needle in the haystack, right, when it comes to this, and every little bit of a degree makes a difference. So, it's going to be warm no matter how you slice it. It's just a question if we break out the Sharpie for the record book. All right. At the bus stop tomorrow, looking at a decent amount of cloud cover, probably more than we're looking at right now across north and central Georgia. But if you're a fan of the warmer weather, all good things must come to an end. All right. This time of year, whenever we see a big front like this roll through, we're going to have the opportunity for storms. And that's exactly what we're going to see Friday night into Saturday. And that is going to do a number to our temperatures. All right. So here's how it shapes up hour by hour. Looking at the cloud cover into the evening tonight. Again, expecting more cloud cover tomorrow. This is our Fox weather model now. And then watch this. This is going to be Friday morning on into Friday afternoon. Notice showers and storms to the northwest, right? So if you're on the Fox 5 Storm Team app and you're looking at the radar Friday afternoon, you're looking over towards Huntsville and Nashville and going, oh, well, they're right there. They're going to be here kind of early. But watch this, all right? The storms have more of a northward motion than they do an eastward motion. So it's going to take a while for those to move in. This is Saturday at 8 a.m. You see that line of storms pushing through. That's 3 o'clock, right? And it's not even into Eatonton yet. So it's a slow moving in terms of west to east storm system across north and central Georgia, clearing out by Saturday evening. Severe weather outlook here. We've got the Storm Prediction Center already putting northwest Georgia in a level 1 for Friday, mainly Friday night. I expect a level 1 for Saturday. It's just that day 4 outlook is not out yet. So that's what we're going to be keeping an eye on. Here's the drought monitor. We need the rain. We are going to have the opportunity to pick up several inches of rain, particularly up along that northern tier of the state, from Dalton over through Ellijay, Blue Ridge, Blairsville. In the metro area, I'm looking for about an inch-ish, somewhere in there, and then not as much, unfortunately, down to the south and east, down near Lake Country, say Eatonton, and down towards Milledgeville. So here's your Fox 5 Storm Team 7-day forecast. That's the only speed bump, but Ariel, look what it does to the temperatures, right? We go from 70, 71, 70, and then boom, down to 29 Monday morning. I know a lot of kids back in school now. Next Monday morning, I would be on the lookout for wind chills in the low 20s and upper teens.
Got it. Alex, you know, I think I'm ready to go cold again, and, you know, meteorologist Jonathan Stacy would have my head over it, but I just feel like it's January. Right. I got to feel some cold, and then I'll be right on track for the rest of the month.
I would be more on board with the 70s if December was colder.
Yes, yes. December was
so
not.
I still want winter for a little while longer.
Amen. Okay, Alex, thank you so much. You guys, coming up, we are going to get a check of some other stories for you. I want to let you know where we stand with a health care plan that President Trump wants to put forward. Also, what was talked about as it relates to new dietary guidelines. And of course, we're following the latest in Minneapolis. That's coming up next. Welcome in, you guys. I'm Ariel Onstad. Thanks so much for streaming with me. If you're just joining our live, I want to let you know we've been covering Minneapolis. We've been covering the situation in Venezuela. And if we have time, we'll get back and do that once again. But first, something that's really affecting so many of you here in Georgia is the flu. We know flu activity is at record levels. So I'd like to bring in Health Beat reporter Rebecca Grapevine to talk a little bit about where we stand. Rebecca, thanks so much for joining us live.
Thank you.
Rebecca, first question. We know that Georgia was seeing some of the highest levels for the flu, and it is not pretty. Where are we at now? Is that still the case? Any movement in a positive direction? What do you have for us?
Well, we get data every Friday, but as of last Friday, there were 1,580 hospitalizations since the start of the season in October. And sadly, Ariel, there have been about 29 deaths just in this past 3 months. So we'll see what happens over the coming weeks. But with school back in session, people think the numbers will stay up for a while.
Yeah, because as people continue to gather, germs spread. So if we've talked a lot about what people can do to mitigate that spread, but I think it bears repeating because I see it all the time. People are like, okay, I'm washing my hands. Is there anything else I can do? It's like people have a checklist and they want to make sure they can do everything possible not to get sick. So what have you found to be effective based on your research?
Well, the State Department of Health this week put out an alert advising people to get a vaccination. And, it's not too late to get a flu vaccine. And the vaccine can really reduce your risk of death or hospitalization. Another thing you can do is mask up when you're in big groups. And obviously hand hygiene and helping, those around you cough into their arm or, practice good coughing hygiene is another good strategy. Washing your hands too.
Yeah, Rebecca, I think often I'm like, okay, if I know someone around me is sick or if I know I'm feeling any kind of way, I'm washing my hands, I'm disinfecting any shared surfaces. So if we do end up getting the flu, as a kind of a final question for you here, what can we do to weather it? Is there anything that really helps in terms of mitigating symptoms, I know we obviously want a thermometer, any medications that you found health officials to recommend?
Well, there are prescription drugs on the market that can help reduce the severity of the flu. But the key to those medications is you got to get to them pretty quickly within 48 or maybe 72 hours of your symptoms starting. So if you do think you have the flu, which doctors say you'll feel like you got run over by a truck, it's not just the common cold, give your doctor a call or try to hop on telemedicine, talk about your symptoms. And if you can get one of those prescriptions, especially if you're at higher risk, that could really help you in the long run. That would be the number one thing that I learned doing research for this story.
Rebecca, I know I said final question, but something came to mind. Final question. Have we heard with flu activity being so high and so many people sick and trying to get better, have we heard of any medication shortages yet? Are there any concerns of that from doctors that you may have heard of?
That I haven't heard about. What I have heard about is if you do go to urgent care, you go to the ER, you might have a longer wait time because not only are a lot of people getting flu, but even sometimes doctors and nurses get the flu too. And that's why you could do maybe telemedicine if you're pretty sure you have the flu, if you've got that fever, those body aches, that could kind of help alleviate some of the strain. And then you don't have to leave the house too, if that's an option for you.
Rebecca, thanks so much for joining us live, explaining how we can try to keep ourselves healthy. I really appreciate it. And thanks for sharing your reporting with us this afternoon from Health Beat.
All right. See you soon and stay healthy.
Thanks, Rebecca. Okay, guys, we're going to move on because speaking of health and your health care, the president wants a fix for health care for Americans, and he wants it ahead of the midterms. He's pushing on lawmakers, especially the GOP, to make health care a big issue this year. He told House Republicans just yesterday, quote, "You can own health care," end quote. He called on them to pass a bill establishing private health care savings accounts, even though it would mean changing the so-called Hyde Amendment. And you might recall, or even if you don't, I'm here to tell you, the Hyde Amendment actually bans taxpayer money from being used on abortions. But the president says, let the money go directly to the people and be flexible on the Hyde Amendment and that issue. He says at this point, he wants to make sure Americans have health care, as it is such a big issue ahead of the midterm elections. Democrats are also unlikely to support the GOP measure of allowing money to go directly to Americans. They say these savings accounts wouldn't wouldn't even come close to covering the cost of health care for most families. And right now, there's no fix in sight to help millions of Americans whose premiums skyrocketed here at the start of the year after Obamacare subsidies expired. Republicans say Democrats are refusing to negotiate on any bill that doesn't include a 3-year extension of those subsidies. Republicans have also said that Democrats are trying to use health care as a negotiating issue to win the midterm elections and to hold out their votes on any kind of proposal or solution as it relates to health care, so they can blame the Republicans on the matter. Now, as we continue to look at this, we were just talking about the flu. This ongoing healthcare crisis does continue with an unprecedented flu outbreak. We have 45 states now reporting high or very high rates of infection, and a bipartisan group of senators is meeting this week, however, to hash out a new healthcare plan. They want to try to see if they can combine subsidies with Obamacare changes. So that is absolutely something we'll keep you updated here on Fox Local. But in the meantime, I want to move on to what the White House wanted to discuss earlier today. The White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, as well as we saw Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and other health leaders come out today to talk about new guidelines for dietary protocols for Americans. So basically outlining what Americans should and shouldn't eat. Some of this may seem common sense to you, but at this time, these new dietary guidelines are official and they emphasize healthy, full fats, less processed food for Americans, and they want to prioritize protein, vegetables, and whole grains. So really the Trump administration, as part of its Make America Healthy Again movement, is adding these recommendations, calling for the first time for Americans to avoid altogether highly processed foods. I'd like to let you listen in on a couple moments from the White House press briefing earlier today.
The Trump administration is now updating federal nutrition standards and guidelines to ensure that Americans have the most accurate, data-driven information supported by science and hard facts, not special interests or partisan ideology. President Trump has tasked two of the great individuals behind me, USDA Secretary Rollins and HHS Secretary Kennedy, with collaborating on this vitally important project. And today they are here to officially unveil the 2025 to 2030 dietary guidelines for America. These new guidelines are informed by the best and most reliable research on health and nutrition, particularly as it relates to the role of our diets and the prevalence of chronic disease in the country. They are also these guidelines are easy to read and understand, so every American, young and old, can access this information that literally has the power to change lives.
Today, the lies stop. The new guidelines recognize that whole, nutrient-dense food is the most effective path to better health and lower health care costs. And today our government declares war on added sugar. Highly processed foods loaded with additives, added sugar, and excess salt damage health and should be avoided. As Secretary of Health and Human Services, my message is clear: eat real food. Nothing matters more for healthcare outcomes, economic productivity, military readiness, and fiscal stability.
Well, that was Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talking a little bit more about these guidelines today. And as we know, this is another part of the guidelines that the White House rolled out, was encouraging Americans to consume less alcohol. It also recommends you eat at least 3 servings of vegetables and 2 servings of fruit each day. And the Trump administration says it's ending the war on healthy fats and instead starting a war on added sugars. So something we are going to continue to monitor. But here a little closer to home, as we continue to look at some things happening in our neck of the woods here in the Atlanta area, we know that the U.S. Aviation actually was just awarded $835 million in a contract. I want to make sure I get those numbers right, to do pilot training for the United States Air Force. And our Chris Rosenthal joins us live to explain how this is going to work. So Chris, $835 million, incredible. You're live there from Peachtree City. What does this mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm at the airport here in Peachtree City, where the U.S. Aviation Academy has one of their training programs. They have several across the country, but they are located here in Peachtree City. Like you said, they got an $835 million contract to work with the Air Force to help train pilots, to help get them started so that they're ready to go into the Air Force and go further with their careers there. But I am joined by Angie and Jeremy here with the U.S. Aviation Academy. And Angie, tell me about the relationship that you guys have with the Air Force and what this contract means.
Absolutely, yeah. So U.S. Aviation Academy began their initial conversation with the Air Force back about 15 months ago when we started training students in Texas. Our first class came here back in April of last year, and we've had classes now ever since. So what it is we train the students for about 139 days. It should be a little bit less than that to get 3 certifications. Their private, their instrument, and then their multi-add-on to their private. So what this does is it saves the Air Force some time and effort with regard to front-end training with the students, so that when they actually get back to UPT, undergraduate pilot training at their base, they can get through it much quicker.
Gotcha. So it really helps streamline the process.
Absolutely.
Going through and getting their education, going into the Air Force, gets them up in the sky quicker and sooner, more efficiently. So, and how many students are we talking here?
We currently have 3 classes going, and the classes are somewhere between 27, 28 to 30 students at a time, and so right now we have about 81 on station.
Gotcha, yeah, and I tell you, just being inside, you know, there's a lot of students. It's kind of a buzz in there right now, and you got your simulators as well. So
yes, it's exciting.
And it's a beautiful day here, and these are just some of their planes. Earlier today, it was a little foggy, so they weren't able to fly. This place is full of their planes, but a lot of your pilots are kind of up in the air right now, and your students as well, huh?
Yes, they're getting ready to fly again.
Awesome. And you know, there's always an economic impact whenever, you know, money like this and a contract like this is brought here to an area like this. What does this mean for, you know, not just the Academy, but also just the community as well? What does this bring?
Yeah, so in the past 12 months, U.S. Aviation Academy has dumped about $30 million worth of investment across all their bases where some of these programs are taking place. And what it means specifically for Peachtree City here is we've got 3 classes on deck, as Colonel Felice just mentioned. You're going to have about 70 to 90 students at any one time that are here living, working in Peachtree City, which is obviously an advantage for all of us here locally. And then also you've got about 50 to 60 jobs here specific to U.S. Aviation Academy that help facilitate this program. Everything from instructors to mechanics to admin professionals who really make this program successful. And like I said, this program now being extended with a 10-year contract really is going to guarantee that we can have a lasting footprint here in the community.
Will there be more jobs available for maybe people watching that may have experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So apart from the Air Force component, we do have retail components for, you know, anybody who wants to come in and learn to fly. We've also got university programs that are becoming active. And as we just grow organically, we're going to need more instructors. We're going to need more mechanics. We're going to need more admin professionals to come in and help facilitate these programs to keep the planes in the air and keep the students progressing towards their goals.
And you guys are growing. I mean, logistically, you guys are gonna grow some space here too, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the plan, and it looks like all is going well.
Awesome, awesome. So, so there you go. I mean, growth for U.S. Aviation Academy out here in Peachtree City, but you know, also growth for the community as well.
Sounds really exciting, Chris. You know, I love that we're able to get these opportunities here in our neck of the woods, and it sounds like it's a really great opportunity for someone who wants to pursue a career, you know, either with the military or even civilian life.
Absolutely, yeah, they do both. They cover both grounds.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thanks so much for joining us live, showing us what to expect. As we continue along here, you guys, I want to continue to keep you updated as the situation unfolds in Minneapolis. So let's see if we can go out there live there here very briefly as we transition to what is next. You're taking a live look there at the scene in Minneapolis where ICE agents have shot and killed a woman. They say in a defensive move, they say the woman was trying to ram her car towards officers when an officer fired that fatal shot. Now, as we continue to look at this, we have started to see more and more people come out to this scene. Just about an hour ago, they were gathered primarily around the intersection. You can see a shot from the ground there in the upper left. But as you look along the street, you see officers, unmarked vehicles there along the street, and more people lining the sidewalk there in Minneapolis. In case you're just joining us, the overview is that earlier this morning, there was a massive law enforcement presence, and truly still is, along 34th Street and Portland Avenue there in Minneapolis. And a statement to our sister station, Fox 9, and you're looking at video from earlier today, you can see protesters pelting some of the ICE officers with snowballs. But earlier today, that statement read that ICE says officers were conducting an operation when protesters started blocking officers. Minneapolis police chief says the woman that was the subject of this did not appear to be a target of ICE's operation, rather just a bystander and protester there of the event. The statement further says a woman weaponized her vehicle and tried to run officers over, and an officer, fearing for his life, fired defensive shots, ultimately killing her. The FBI is now going to take over the investigation, but leaders in Minneapolis, including Mayor Jacob Frey, held a news conference that wrapped up just before our 2 o'clock hour, and he had a different take on the situation. He said that ultimately he felt ICE was power hungry and acting outside of their authority. He said that he watched the video of the shooting, which led him to that conclusion. And he said that he felt that ICE agents were not acting as they should have been. This is an ongoing situation we're going to continue to keep you updated on as things develop. But as we continue to take a look at live images here, you can see the protesters seem to have ebbed and flowed from the ground shot, but taking a look at it from above, from the air, you can see more and more protesters have come out to that scene there, that intersection. The woman's car, it was an SUV, a Honda SUV, and it was towed around 1:30 this afternoon there away from the scene. It was a Honda Pilot. During that news conference, we did learn that the woman was a middle-aged woman who was white. No other details were given, but that was what we did learn from that news conference. As we continue, we also learned from that news conference that Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara says that the woman was fatally shot in her head. He also says that she was rushed to the hospital, but obviously did not survive her injuries. Developing situation, we're going to continue to keep you updated as this situation unfolds. And if you guys have questions, I will try to work to answer them here in our TikTok chat or our YouTube as well. But coming up, we're going to take it closer to home as we take a look at an effort here locally to make sure that hunger is not a barrier to learning, especially as little ones head back to the classroom after winter break. That's coming up. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Ariel Onstad. Thanks so much for streaming live here with us on your Wednesday afternoon. There's a new push to expand pantries in Atlanta's schools here across the metro area, and some community partners teamed up with Kroger to get this done. Eli Jordan shows us how.
Hey, I'm at Kroger in Marietta, Kroger number 730 on Powers Ferry Road, where they have donated $237,000 to Must Ministries to help bring food pantries to schools, because 1 in 5 children, that's 20% of children in America, face hunger issues. And that's not cool, because we are a first world country. But Kroger has donated $239,000 to Must Ministries to help bring and aid some of these families around in the metro Atlanta area with some food help. And they are already in 80 schools across the metro area. And I spoke with Ike Reiger, who is the CEO and president of Must Ministries. And here's what he said, how that money will affect them and their efforts.
$329,000 goes a long way toward helping us to be able to put pantries in school. It's something that Kroger is doing, and there's no way that we could do this without their help. So this allows us now to have 20 hub sites, which serves around 80 schools altogether. So right there on site in the schools with the school social workers, they choose the families that are able to receive these goods, and it makes all the difference in the world.
How long has this been going on, the food pantries at the schools?
We've been doing food pantries now for the last 10 years at Must Ministries. Kroger came along and started helping us in 2 different ways. They helped us with our mobile pantry, which took care of about 20,000 people last year. And then they help us with the food pantries inside of schools. So it's a part of their zero waste program. And we are just so thankful to Kroger for everything they do for us, along with volunteering and doing that great work as well.
We have 1 in 5 children are hungry in this country, and our mission is zero hunger and zero waste. So it is just a no-brainer for us to find ways to help remove hunger in our schools so that our children are able to go to school, not worry about eating, but to learn, and to do that in a comfortable environment. So this charity of choice that our president, Victor Smith, has put into place allows us to be able to meet that mission of zero hunger and zero waste.
The School Pantry Initiative is chosen by the president of the Atlanta division of Kroger, and he personally chose this because he sees it as a way to give back right at ground zero where the need is for these kids. Because, hunger with kids, that affects concentration, memory, mood, and we want those kids to be in a good mood when they're hanging out at school, and we want them to be able to concentrate, remember all the stuff, that these teachers have been feeding their heads with, and then hopefully they'll be able to feed their bodies with some food from Kroger and Must Ministries, and continue with this $329,000 check Kroger has presented to Must Ministries to help out the food pantries across greater metro Atlanta. And that's the news here. It's good news. Help out some of these hungry kids at school. Back to you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Eli, so much for giving us a look at how that's going to work. Obviously, a great effort to make sure kids here in the metro area don't go hungry, especially as they try to learn. You guys, coming up, we are going to take you back live to Minneapolis. I also would like to play moments from the news conference earlier that Minneapolis's mayor held alongside other news leaders there. We're talking about the chief of police in Minneapolis, as well as some others. We've got some other local news headlines to get to for you guys, and that is all coming up at 3 o'clock. Welcome in, everyone, and thanks so much for streaming along with us. I'm Ariel Onstadt, and it is great to have you here live on our Wednesday afternoon. We're following a developing story in Minneapolis where we know ICE agents have shot and killed a woman. Let's go there live now to the scene. Within the past hour, this has grown tremendously as more and more protesters have come out along the barricades to protest ICE involvement there in the city of Minneapolis and the shooting that unfolded today. So while you take a look at this, we might play some video, and I'm going to take you back earlier this morning to what unfolded, because we know that a woman is dead. According to a news conference, she is middle-aged, white, and she was driving a purple Honda SUV earlier today. We saw a massive law enforcement presence at the scene along 34th Street and Portland Avenue, and truly that law enforcement presence has not dwindled at all because more and more protesters are coming to the scene. And a statement to our sister station, Fox 9, the Department of Homeland Security says ICE officers were conducting an operation when protesters started to block officers. The statement further says that a woman weaponized her vehicle and tried to run officers over, and the officer, fearing for his life, fired defensive shots. Minneapolis's police chief says the woman did not appear to be the target of ICE's operation or investigation, but was there on scene, and the FBI is now going to take over this investigation. But one thing to note is that Mayor Jacob Frey of Minneapolis and Governor Tim Walz are both pushing back on the Department of Homeland Security's narrative. They say that ICE agents were exceeding their power. And one thing that the mayor said in his news conference just a bit ago is that he watched the shooting video. And because he watched the shooting video, that's why he feels agents were acting outside of their power. So let's go ahead and listen to that news conference as it unfolded earlier today.
There's a lot of information that is swirling around right now, and we collectively are going to do everything possible to get to the bottom of this, to get justice, and to make sure that there is an investigation that is conducted in full. But what we do know is that a 37-year-old woman is dead and that she was shot by ICE. We've dreaded this moment since the early stages of this ICE presence in Minneapolis. Not only is this a concern that we've had internally, we've been talking about it. They are not here to cause safety in this city. What they are doing is not to provide safety in America. What they are doing is causing chaos and distrust. They're ripping families apart. They're sowing chaos on our streets, and in this case, quite literally killing people. So they are already trying to spin this as an action of self-defense. Having seen the video of myself, I want to tell everybody directly, this was an agent recklessly using power that resulted in somebody dying, getting killed. As soon as it happened and we learned of the incident, we had several priorities. The first, of course, was to get the victim to the hospital and to get care as soon as possible. To the family, I'm so deeply sorry. There's nothing that I can say right now that's going to make you or your relatives or the friends of the victim feel any better. There were, I believe, 2 Minneapolis police officers that responded and were in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. The second was to get ICE off of the scene.
Okay, guys, you're listening to a news conference as it unfolded just about an hour or two ago from leaders there in Minneapolis. The FBI is taking over this investigation, but you're looking at video there on the scene as protesters have engaged with ICE officers. And you can see people holding umbrellas, wearing masks as they're sprayed with some kind of liquid, presumably pepper spray. As we've watched the aerial footage, we have seen more and more protesters come out to the site night. It has continued to grow, and at this hour you can see that police officers are beginning to put up barricades to begin to push that crowd back just a little bit. I do have Eric Perry here on the set with me, and Eric's here for another story. But Eric, you have a friend who works at the Fox station, our sister station in Minneapolis, and you said you've been talking with some of the people there as they're covering this.
Yeah, so she's been on the desk since early this morning. In fact, she texted me when this happened and said this is going to be a big deal. I was also watching one of the live shots, one of the reporters on the ground, so you can see the crowd starting to build. You can hear them chanting in the background, so protesters are coming out. And so we saw that video with that spray of some sort there. And so we've seen the protesters, but also the reporters, those journalists on the ground also being hit with some of that pepper spray. So it seems like a really busy, active, you can even use the word chaotic scene there. And then, of course, we saw the mayor there, Frey. And just keep in mind also, just for context as well, this has been a very busy year for them. They had that shooting at that elementary school, at that Catholic school not too long ago. And then, of course, they saw the shooting of the political leaders there as well. So it's been a very tough time, and tensions, as my friend said on the desk, have been thick and rising in there, and they didn't think that this was how they were going to start their year.
Such a good point, Eric. And, you know, you're talking about how the situation feels like it's escalating, because not only are we watching more and more people get along that intersection, but I'm seeing more and more city employees in the yellow fluorescent jackets.
Putting up those barricades.
Yeah, and there's more and more unmarked police and law enforcement vehicles, as well as other vehicles from the city. I think I saw a garbage truck further back when the city was, or when we saw this helicopter do a look over that intersection. So if we see that again, I'll point it out. But you guys, if you have questions, let us know. We are showing you this live as it unfolds here, and I'm taking a look through TikTok and YouTube to see if you have any comments or concerns. This is a story we're going to continue to keep you updated on as it develops. I do see it looks like a flag there in the back, and of course more barricades being set up. So developing, we will keep you updated as I get any new information. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and bring you back here to the Fox 5 Atlanta newsroom. We've got Eric Perry here on the set to talk about a story he's been working on today. Eric, an elderly woman is missing, we understand, and it's just a heartbreaking situation, because we were talking, I was overhearing your conversation in the newsroom. She doesn't have a lot of immediate family to check on her.
No, so this is Ernestine Merritt. She goes by Ernie Merritt there. So she disappeared early Sunday morning. You're taking some look at the video of search teams that have kind of been going out in that area. This is off of Boulder Crest Road, so it's in DeKalb County in the Ellenwood area. They've also put up some drones here today as well. She went missing early Sunday morning. Let's walk you through this. So Saturday night, she was talking with friends and family there. She's been diagnosed with dementia. So Saturday night, she had in her mind that she was going to get dressed up and go for church. I'm told that they talked her down from that. And then overnight around 4:30 the next morning, she left her home dressed, ready to go to church. So this is her church there. It's Green Forest Baptist Church there. It's on Rainbow, a very popular church there in the DeKalb County area, right off of I-20 Candler Road, Rainbow Drive there in the area. And they have not been able to find her since then. So you mentioned earlier, she doesn't have any kids or anything like that. Her closest family is in Florida. So right now, her church family, they're the ones that are really organizing on the ground, trying to search for her. 79 years old, around 4'11". She was last seen with a black fur coat, red skirt, black shoes, because keep in mind, again, she was heading to church. So she had on her Sunday's best, and Sunday would have been first Sunday. So a lot of people dress up for that first Sunday. I sat down with Felicia Prince, who worships with her. They're on the usher board together. So a lot of the women that you'll see in the video in this story are with that. They've known her about 20, 30 years. Take a listen to a little bit of our conversation there.
She got into her head that she was going to usher Sunday, and she thought it was Sunday already. And so she got ready to go to church. Based on the Ring camera, she probably left around 4:20 or so in the morning, probably headed to church, dressed and ready to go to church. She is the type of person that she just befriends, you know, a lot of people, everybody, and before the dementia set in, she would do anything that you needed, take you, come and go, and doctor's appointments and things like this.
All right, so we talked a little earlier. There are about probably about 4 women who were there, all in the same circle. She doesn't drive, so they believe she's walking. When they realized she had dementia and that it was getting to a point, they took away her car. So just for her own safety, that type of thing. So they believe she's walking. So they've been searching the area. There's some woods around. They've been searching that over the weekend. They said DeKalb County Police have really been involved in a lot of this case there. And so really what they're doing, they search with canines on the ground. They had helicopters Sunday, Monday, and now we are into Wednesday, and they have not heard from her. So they're just hoping, you know, my story that I'm working on, I asked her to send a message. So just in case she's somewhere, she can hear the news or hear something going on, she hopefully can remember and come back home. But again, they're searching for Ernestine Ernie Merritt, and hopefully she will be found safely. Educator, you know, she retired from education. She taught in DeKalb County, and they said she loved her church, and she has a good group of friends. I have to say, it really warmed my heart. Hate to do a story like this and to meet people like this, but it's good to see that
she has a community.
She has a community, and they are not giving up hope. And so hopefully we can get her back home safely.
Eric, thanks so much for bringing this story to our attention. I absolutely hope for the best in this circumstance. And, you know, I think about Sunday morning, how it was a little foggy.
Exactly.
And it's, you know, that may have made her confused. Maybe she didn't know where she was headed. So ultimately, I just hope she's found safe.
Very foggy. And so I think they were saying because it was so foggy and dark, they thought that she wouldn't leave the house at that time because she usually doesn't go out in that. But she had her mind made up to go to church. So, of course, we'll continue to follow this. My photographer, Jim Zorn, is on the ground there with that search crew as I'm here. So if we hear any updates, we'll be sure to let you know.
Awesome.
Hopefully
Eric,
positive ones.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Guys, let's go out live now to the Georgia State Capitol, where we are going to learn a little bit more about a hearing to explore a flat tax proposal here in the state of Georgia. Deidre Dukes standing by to discuss this with us because, Deidre, I understand this final report on a flat tax rate is ready to be presented to state lawmakers. What would this mean for Georgians?
That's right. The committee that was tasked with coming up with this proposal that'll be presented to the Georgia legislature when the session convenes in next week, actually. They really hope to, their plan anyway, is to eliminate Georgia's state income tax. And on the surface, that sounds like a great idea, but as you can imagine, not everyone is on board with that. The Republican-led committee did pass the final proposal today with the objection of the 3 Democrats on the panel because they had some concerns about how this would all play out. Now, under the proposal, every taxpayer in Georgia would see some sort of tax relief. Starting in 2027, about 2/3 of taxpayers would no longer owe state income tax. Families making less than $100,000 a year would see the biggest benefit, and other families and businesses would see their state income tax drop over time, with the goal of getting them to zero by taking steps to reduce Georgia's business income taxes and eliminate Georgia's state income tax altogether by 2032. Now, backers of the plan say eliminating the state income tax would not require the state to cut services or raise the sales tax. Here's more on how the committee chair, Senator Blake Tillery, said Georgians would benefit.
It eliminates the income tax on the first $50,000 for all Georgians if you're single, for $100,000 if you're a married family filing jointly. So if you're making $1 million, your first 100 is untaxed. If you're making $101,000, your first 100 is untaxed. You're only taxed on the 1,000. If you're making $99,000, then the effect is it does away with your income tax for 2/3 of Georgians, 64%.
And again, the goal, Republican lawmakers do say, is to eliminate Georgia's state income tax by 2032 if a bill, again, which they plan to introduce this legislative session, if that bill is passed out of both chambers and then goes on to Governor Kemp's office for his signature. So it would have a long way to go. And of course, there'll be some lengthy debate in both the Senate and the House chambers as to how this would all play out, as to whether or not this bill will even make it out of the chambers, would pass next session for that final passage by the governor for his signature. But Democrats, in fact, those who were on the panel, they did say that they had some concerns, including, they say, the fact that they are concerned that they'll ultimately have to cut other services, state services that they say are already underfunded in order to make this a reality. And so they have some concerns as to that. No doubt this is going to see a lot of debate, and we could see this actually introduced, Ariel, as a bill within the first few weeks of the session.
Wow, Deidre, you know, this is a really interesting proposal. I think a lot of people would probably hear no state income tax, yippee. But as you take a look at it, understanding, okay, well, what services or programs am I used to that I would be giving up? Where is the state going to get extra money? All questions I'm sure that this panel looked at, maybe in their recommendations, but something that I think we're going to explore further as this gets debated within the legislature.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the areas where the committee said that they can draw money, and again, Republicans for this, Democrats on the panel against it, but the Republicans are saying that one of the areas where they can take some money away to kind of balance this out would be to dial back on the tax incentives, say, for data centers and for film industry benefits that we've seen used a lot by members of the film industry here in Georgia, the tax incentives they receive to shoot films in Georgia. By saying, you know, cutting back on some of those tax benefits, they can make up a lot of the money that would otherwise, you know, equate to a shortfall if we were to eliminate the state income tax altogether.
Good points, Deidre. I always appreciate our conversations, you making sense of this for us. I have no doubt you're going to keep us updated as lawmakers debate the future of this proposal. So thanks so much for joining us live there from the state capitol grounds. We really appreciate you. Okay, guys, we're going to continue to move on here because we have a few national stories to get to. I know so many of you still have questions about what is happening in Venezuela. And today I can tell you that lawmakers actually met with the Trump administrations and they got a first official briefing. They got an overview as to what happened, what went down. And while Nicolas Maduro, Venezuela's former leader, sits in a jail in New York City, the United States is ramping up its crackdown on the country's black oil market. We know that just this morning, United States forces boarded and seized 2 sanctioned oil tankers, one in the Caribbean and one in the Atlantic, known for transporting oil from Venezuela to countries like Iran, Russia, and China. And the seizures come just hours after President Trump announced Venezuela is going to be turning over between 30 to 50 million barrels of oil for the United States to refine and sell. That would be more than $2 billion worth of oil by today's prices. But none of this is going to be easy or quick. Keep in mind, a lot of analysts say that it would take until early 2030 for Venezuela to be exporting barrels of oil on this level. The takeover of Venezuela's oil reserves comes, of course, after special forces captured Maduro in a dramatic raid over the weekend. He's now facing drug trafficking related charges here in the United States. But some lawmakers are questioning what the president's real motivations are. We know many Democratic lawmakers believe that Maduro's arrest was always about the oil, and they're trying to get a sense of what comes next. Now, in the White House press briefing today, Secretary Caroline Leavitt did address this in question and answer with reporters. The first question posed to her by a reporter was, what comes next for Venezuela? Let's listen to her response.
Let me just be very clear. This is the first time that I've addressed Venezuela from the podium since being back and since the historic and incredibly successful military operation, law enforcement operation conducted by our United States military that you all saw and the world witnessed last week. The skill, the might of the United States military and our country under the leadership of this president is on full display to the rest of the world. And let's just set the record straight. There isn't another military in the world who could have pulled off this operation. There is not another president in the world or in our nation's history who had the courage to authorize such a mission. And I think the world has taken notice that America is truly back. With respect to Venezuela, the Trump administration, led by Secretary Rubio, the vice president, and the president's entire national security team, is in close correspondence with the interim authorities in Venezuela. We obviously have maximum leverage over the interim authorities in Venezuela right now, and the president has has made it very clear that this is a country within the United States, the Western Hemisphere, close by the United States, that is no longer going to be sending illegal drugs to the United States of America. It's no longer going to be sending and trafficking illegal people and criminal cartels to kill American citizens as they have in the past. And the president is fully deploying his peace through strength foreign policy agenda. So we're continuing to be in close coordination with the interim authorities, and their decisions are going to continue to be dictated by the United States of America.
Just one follow-up, when you talk about that leverage there, has the Venezuelan government fully committed to turning over its oil to the United States indefinitely, and what happens if they do not?
Well, as you saw, the president announced last night, this was a deal. This was a deal made by the president and his team with the Venezuelan interim authorities. This will benefit both the American people and the Venezuelan people. And Secretary Wright and the Department of Energy are working with the interim authorities and also with the private oil industry to execute on this historic energy deal that's not only good for the United States, but it's also going to revive the prosperity, the safety, the security of both the United States and Venezuela as well. Ed.
So you heard the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt there talking about Venezuela, and she talked a little bit about how oil companies are going to be very heavily involved in this decision. We do know that the president plans to meet with oil executives on Friday to discuss new opportunities in Venezuela. And just a little bit ago, we got a news alert about how the United States is asserting its control over Venezuela's oil economy with the seizure of those 2 oil tankers, and that the president is working to speak with oil executives as to how this plan is going to look moving forward. So that's something we're going to continue to keep you updated on. But, you know, you guys, you've been talking a lot about the situation in Venezuela. I see your comments here within our TikTok and YouTube chats. And a big question that a lot of people are thinking about is Venezuela's now, where do we go from here? And especially as the president has escalated his war of words with Greenland, a lot of people are asking what's next with the Danish territory? Where do we head from here? Because the United States, specifically the Trump administration, has pushed for the United States to acquire Greenland one way or another. A senior policy advisor says that the United States is eventually going to take over this territory. So let's get into it, because after the United States captured Maduro, once again, the Trump administration floated the idea of taking over this territory that is owned by Denmark. And the president also refused to rule out military force in order to do this. Denmark's prime minister, though, is claiming any strike on Greenland would mean the end of the NATO alliance. However, tough talks are continuing. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller said that the U.S. will move to take over the territory sooner rather than later, claiming it's part of a long-term strategy to help NATO allies. Democrats on Capitol Hill have pushed back on those comments, and they have vowed to stop any funding for any military operation that would acquire Greenland. Now, we also know America's NATO allies are standing behind Denmark, saying the United States has no right to invade the Danish territory. They've also acknowledged America's role in European security, saying we must do everything we can to maintain a European and American alliance, and this won't be done without goodwill on both sides. Republican Senate Majority Leader John Thune told Fox News today that he doesn't think U.S. military action is an option when it comes to Greenland. So a situation with a lot of moving parts. You're going to hear it right here on Fox Local as we keep you updated. Coming up, you guys, I want to get you an update as to where we head with the California wildfires as we look ahead 1 year later. And later on, we're also going to be checking in on new health guidelines, new dietary guidelines that the Trump administration has rolled out today. That's coming up. Welcome back in. I'm Ariel Onstadt. Thanks so much for streaming live here with us on our Wednesday afternoon. It has been exactly 1 year since two major wildfires broke out just hours apart on opposite sides of Los Angeles County. Now, the fires burned for a month, killing 31 people and destroying more than 16,000 buildings. You may remember this as it was live and happening just a year ago. And for many families, recovery is just getting started. We saw so many relief efforts, and Fox's Sarah Allegre joins us live from Altadena, California. Sarah, if you can, take us back to how this all unfolded. It is crazy to think this happened just a year ago.
Hi, Ariel. Yeah, it's so hard to wrap my head around thinking where we were with our coverage and just how different the atmosphere here looks today compared to what we experienced January 7th, 2025. You know, not blue skies, but thick plumes of smoke, devastating fires, and very strong gusty winds. I mean, we're talking 90-mile-an-hour wind gust. And I want to make it clear, you know, there were two fires, as you said, that were burning across portions of Los Angeles County on completely opposite sides. You know, we had the Palisades fire over near the west part of this, the county, and then eastern we had the Altadena fire, the Eaton fire rather. And for here in Altadena, I mean, the Eaton fire changed so many lives here. I again mentioned the wind gust, how incredibly strong it was. It grounded aircraft, so crews weren't able to really attack that fire from that aerial position. And so what we saw in a matter of hours, this fire here exploding from bad to worse, essentially. And so throughout this week, we've been here talking to members of the community and taking this moment of reflection as they reflect back on the year that they've experienced, on the day that they experienced, and what really feels like yesterday for a lot of these people. And we're in one of those neighborhoods that was completely wiped out by the fire, and it looks so different compared to what we saw. You know, behind here used to be several homes. This is such a tight-knit community, and now what we're seeing are vacant lots and hopefully signs of rebuilding within the course of the next year. But this is a process that takes a lot of time, and there's a lot of red tape. That's a reality that a lot of these homeowners are experiencing. So with that, yes, it brings hardships, but for many people, even small signs of construction also bring hope of a new and restored Altadena that many of these community members are longing for.
Yeah, Sarah, you know, you're jogging so many memories within my head as we look. We're in a 3-box right now. We're looking at your video while we have our conversation, and just incredible to see the rebuilding efforts, because, you know, for a lot of these families, one of the things I was hearing just when this happened is that so many have had these homes for generations, and when they owned them, they cost one price. Now with inflation, you might imagine decades later, it's a very different cost to try to rebuild, and new laws, red tape like you were talking about. So I'd imagine these challenges are just really hard for a lot of families to begin to rebuild in that area.
Absolutely, Ariel, and not all can rebuild. There are several who even acknowledged to me how blessed and how fortunate they are to make this reality happen for their families, to rebuild and continue their legacy for the generations to come. I love that you said that because that's what you see here in a community like Altadena. You also see it in the Palisades as well. I've reported on many stories, talked to many families who share that, but not everyone is so lucky. You have a lot of people here who rented and had those lower prices as well, or had that home passed down to them, and now many are forced to either move out of the community or find new creative ways to replant their roots here. And that's where we see the help from local organizations, nonprofit organizations, these charities that have donated millions of dollars to the LA Fire Relief Fund to help people rebuild themselves back in this community, find a way to do that so they can carry on the tradition that their mothers and fathers and their grandparents started just years ago. And so there's a lot of red tape, there's a lot of challenges, but what we are seeing is community support, hoping to make that happen to keep the community of Altadena.
Yeah, Sarah, I so appreciate our conversation, letting us know where we stand with this. Crazy to think it's already been a year, but absolutely wonderful to hear for those who are rebuilding, and hopefully those who are having to get creative and who are still facing challenges are able to find a way forward. It's absolutely heartbreaking. But Sarah, I'll let you go. I so appreciate our time and our conversation this afternoon, so thanks so much. Okay, guys, I'm going to bring you back here in studio, and I'd like to take a live look outside if we can, so that way we can see what we're dealing with here on our Wednesday afternoon. You're taking a look there at Midtown, and it looks cloudy, but yet sunny. So meteorologist Alex Forbes joining us live to make sense of it. And Alex, how that day looks is about how I feel, because I can look at that and I feel like I sense the humidity, and, you know, if my hair is any indication today.
You feel the soupiness.
I feel the soupiness, yes.
So I was talking with David a couple minutes ago. We did not see our dew point drop like at all last night, which is part of the reason why we had so much fog this morning and why this afternoon is so humid. Now, here's the million-dollar question. We're at 69 right now. This is usually about the peak heating of the day. Can we squeeze out a 72? Can we get that sun at the sensor in the airport for like 30 additional minutes? Because if that's the case, then we're going to set a record high temperature for the afternoon hours. If we're going to be this warm, may as well do it, right? 68 in Covington right now, 73 over in Eatonton, and 72 in Milledgeville, so a little warmer where they've seen a little more sun down there on the south side. Now, once we hit our high temperature for the day, the temperatures, they're going to slide into the evening tonight down into the 60s and 50s, but that's going to be about it. We're going to be looking at numbers right around our average high temperature for our low temperature tomorrow morning. All right, so in Atlanta, I'm looking for 53. Our average high is 54. 48 in Canton, 47 in Gainesville, 49 over in Athens, and 49 over in Eatonton. Now, we were forecasting 72 for the afternoon. 72 is where we're looking for that record high. Look at Thursday, not quite as warm, and Friday also not quite as warm. 72 is your record on Friday. I think that's the closest we're going to come to it, barring any breaking today, at 71, which would still be just a degree shy of that. So here we go with the bus stop forecast for tomorrow. Decent amount of cloud cover across north and central Georgia, with temperatures getting into the upper 60s for sure, and then low 70s possibly through the afternoon. A couple peaks of sun earlier in the day, more cloud cover later in the day. And if you're watching from Rome, Dalton, Chatsworth, Lafayette, I would be on the lookout for showers tomorrow afternoon. This is going to be ahead of the chance for storms. That's Friday. This is going to be ahead of the chance of storms there on Saturday. All my days are running together here. And we're going to be, so here's the deal. I think there's going to be a moment in time where we're talking about not a high rain chance for Atlanta at all, but Northwest Georgia's rain chance is going to be going up. That's what I'm getting at. All right?
Okay.
So
I like it.
A 20% chance of rain for Friday, 80% on Saturday. That's going to have a couple of storms along with it. A couple of those could be on the stronger side. We're used to thunderstorms here in north and central Georgia. It's nothing we haven't seen before. A couple gusty winds. It's certainly not going to keep me up. Don't want you to stay up at night either. All right. So Wednesday, looking at some cloud cover. Thursday, here we come. Thursday morning, widespread cloud cover, maybe some fog tomorrow morning, and then there you go, soft into the cloud cover into Friday, and then there's that rain chance there late Friday into Saturday in northwest Georgia before the line of storms begins to push in. That's 8 a.m. There's noon, 3 p.m., and then on into the evening hours. Now, the Storm Prediction Center has already outlooked parts of northwest Georgia in a level 1 for Friday, so we'll watch that. Damaging winds in the driver's seat there, but again, a lot of people are going to be just looking at some heavier downpours. So there's your Fox 5 Storm Team forecast. Somebody reminded Mother Nature it's January, because highs are going to be back in the 40s for Sunday and Monday. Monday morning specifically, I would highlight as the coldest time over the next week, looking for an overnight low of 29 in Atlanta, but that wind is going to make it feel potentially like the upper teens.
Okay, Alex, as I continue to look at this, I'm thinking I'm going to do all my outside activities now as opposed to later, and it'll be kind of crisp and clear later on in the week.
January-like.
Yes, as it probably should be.
Right.
So, Alex, thank you so much. Okay, guys, we're going to move on. I'd like to see if we can take a live look back out at the situation in Minneapolis as we continue to keep you updated on a developing story. You're taking a live look as protesters, other demonstrators, community gatherers have come there to the scene in Minneapolis, and it appears we're looking at what is a memorial potentially for this woman, because we've seen people place flowers. You can see white roses there in the snow, another bouquet with a red rose there being laid down. So we'll continue to keep you updated. The camera shot keeps moving as the photographer is keeping us abreast of what's happening in that area. You're now taking a live look there at the intersection or near that intersection. A lot of people beginning to walk away from where this happened. So when we start started off at the top of 3 o'clock. We know that law enforcement was putting out a lot of barricades and there was a heavy law enforcement presence. It might be that they have begun to disperse the crowd in that area, as you can see a stream of people beginning to walk away. But we do know this shooting involved ICE officers. According to a statement from the Department of Homeland Security, ICE officers were conducting an operation there in the area when they say protesters gathered and tried to block one of the agent's vehicles. They say then an agent opened fire, ultimately shooting and killing a woman. They believe that woman was trying to ram her car into the agents, and the officer acted in self-defense. We did watch a news conference from Minneapolis's leaders a short time afterward where they disputed this claim. They said the video showed the ICE agent acting outside of his power. I see a lot of you in our TikTok and YouTube chat saying that you've seen that video, you've seen the shooting, and you are talking about that. If I get that video and we talk about it here as a newsroom, which parts of it we are able to air, we'll have that conversation and bring it to you guys. But as I see many of you have already seen that video, according to what you're saying in the comments, you can continue your discussion there as to what you saw. But you're taking a live look for now at what appears to be a memorial that's growing there in Minneapolis. But the woman, we did learn from that news conference, is white, middle-aged, and she was driving a purple Honda SUV that has already been towed from the scene. We'll keep you updated if we get more information about who she is. As authorities may release her identity, I will let you know when I get that information. But as of right now, this is where this story stands, and we'll keep you updated right here on Fox Local. So thanks so much for streaming with us. Coming up, we are going to continue to follow this story. I also want to keep you updated on some new dietary guidelines the White House has rolled out as it relates to what Americans should be eating to stay healthy. So that is coming up. We're also going to talk with our Chris Rosenthal about some new pilot training and money helping pilots get training right here in the Metro Atlanta area. That's next. Welcome in, everyone. I'm Ariel Onstadt. Thanks so much for listening to us live here. We're going to continue to keep you updated on the news of the day. And one of the big national stories that we're talking about involves healthcare and where we go from here. Right now, the president is pushing Republicans to come up with a fix for healthcare sooner rather than later, especially as we look ahead to the midterm elections. That is the message that the president sent to House Republicans yesterday during his meeting with them. Democrats, though, say this plan is too little too late. President Trump wants the GOP to make health care a big issue in the midterm elections. He told House Republicans that they can own health care, and he called on them to pass a bill that would establish private health care savings accounts. This would, however, mean changing the so-called Hyde Amendment. If you're unfamiliar with that, the Hyde Amendment bars taxpayer money from funding abortions. But the president says let the money go directly to the people, and you have to be a little bit flexible on the Hyde Amendment. So the president says that this is an important issue, and ultimately the president doesn't want to lose the midterm elections over healthcare being a reason why. So let's talk about it a little more, because Democrats are unlikely to support any GOP plan that puts private healthcare savings accounts towards Americans and what they may need, because Democrats have said that savings accounts would not even come close to covering the cost of healthcare for most families. They say this is an ineffective policy proposal, but right now there's no plan in place to help millions of Americans whose premiums skyrocketed after the Obamacare subsidies expired here at the start of this year. Republicans say that Democrats are refusing to negotiate on a bill that does not include an extension to those subsidies, and Republicans have accused Democrats of trying to use a failure to have progress on health care as a negotiating chip to show why Republicans may be ineffective and to hinder legislature. So this is kind of a dueling narrative, he said, she said situation. But at the end of the day, this healthcare crisis also comes amid a flu outbreak here in the United States. 45 states now reporting very high rates of infection, and a bipartisan group of senators is meeting this week to hash out a new deal as it relates to healthcare. It will likely have subsidies. It will combine subsidies to extending Obamacare with fixes to Obamacare, because something Republicans have talked a lot about is that they think there's a lot of fraud and waste with the Affordable Care Act, and they want to make sure that is fixed. So that's something that we're going to continue to talk about. President Trump wants to make sure he's focusing on every issue to ensure Republicans do not lose the midterm elections this year. So something to talk about. But very briefly here, I want to tell you about some new dietary guidelines that the White House rolled out today. The White House declaring war on added sugar and ending a war, it says, on healthy fats. They say Americans should eat less processed foods. So really quickly, let's listen to what was said during the White House press briefing earlier today.
The Trump administration is now updating federal nutrition standards and guidelines to ensure that Americans have the most accurate, data-driven information supported by science and hard facts, not special interests or partisan ideology. President Trump has tasked two of the great individuals behind me, USDA Secretary Rollins and HHS Secretary Kennedy, with collaborating on this vitally important project. And today they are here to officially unveil the 2025 to 2030 dietary guidelines for America. These new guidelines are informed by the best and most reliable research on health and nutrition, particularly as it relates to the role of our diets and the prevalence of chronic disease in the country. They are also these guidelines are easy to read and understand, so every American, young and old, can access this information that literally has the power to change lives.
Today, the lies stop. The new guidelines recognize that whole, nutrient-dense food is the most effective path to better health and lower health care costs.
So the Secretary of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr., went on to talk about how Americans should get 3 servings of veggies a day, 2 servings of fruits a day, and they really want to make sure Americans, in line with this Make America Healthy Again initiative, are consuming full healthy fats, high protein diets, and avoiding processed food and alcohol as well. So something we'll keep you updated on as we get any new information, but those are the new dietary guidelines from the White House as they were announced today. Here locally, though, we know that U.S. Aviation actually awarded an $835 million contract to do pilot training for the U.S. Air Force. And our Chris Rosenthal joins us live to talk about how some of that, Chris, is going to be done right here in Peachtree City. How exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm at the U.S. Aviation Academy here in Peachtree City at Atlanta Regional Airport, and this place has been kind of a buzz. You can already see they got lots of students here, getting trained to fly. And I'm here with Angie. She is Angie with the school here. And tell me about some of these students you've already got here, huh?
Absolutely. These students just got here about a week and a half ago. They come from Vance Air Force Base in Oklahoma, and they're going to be here for about 4 to 5 months training with us, getting their certifications.
And that's all, part of this relationship you guys have with the Air Force. Talk to me a little bit about that and the contract you guys have now.
Absolutely, yes. So U.S. Aviation Academy began training Air Force pilots in Texas about 15 months ago. We got our first students in April of this year and have been training ever since. At any one time, we're going to have 3 full classes and can have upwards of 4 classes with us. And that means somewhere 80 to 100 students, Air Force alone, in addition to our retail students that we train.
And that really kind of helps. It helps the Air Force. It kind of helps get ahead and get them sort of a head start, huh?
It definitely does, yeah. The Air Force needs to have some additional assets to be able to get through pilot training in the amount of time that they've got to be able to produce pilots, and so that's what we're doing. We're giving them a leg up with just initial training.
And outside, you got plenty of airplanes out there that they're going out and using, and obviously classwork time. And then in here, talk to me a little bit about what we have in here.
So these are our Redbird simulators. They are, you can see they've got some pretty good graphics here. We're able to simulate both the Skyhawks and the Seminoles that we fly on the flight line every day.
Gotcha. And how long will this take them to go through this program?
Anywhere between 4 and 5 months. It's 120 to 139 days is what we train them.
Gotcha. Now, of course, with any contract like this, it means you guys are growing and jobs. And I got Jeremy here, who's also with the school here. And tell me a little bit about what impact this will have, broadly in the area.
Yeah, obviously we're very excited about this becoming a 10-year contract, and it shows a commitment both from the Air Force and U.S. Aviation Academy in the area to expand this operation and create opportunities. One of the great things here is this is providing roughly 50 to 60 jobs right here in this area right now. Everything from flight instructors to mechanics to admin professionals who help make this operation work. And of course, as a part of this, you're also going to have anywhere between 70 to 90 active duty Air Force personnel that are living and working in Peachtree City year-round, which is obviously going to be a win-win situation for everybody in the local community.
Gotcha. And of course, space, you guys are going to be expanding, I'm sure, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the past 12 months, U.S. Aviation has invested about $30 million in land acquisitions, new hangars, acquiring new aircraft, upgrades, all of which, designed to make sure that our pilots are coming out the best trained they can, not only on the Air Force side, but our retail side, and our university students as well.
If somebody wants to get involved in this, what can they do?
Yeah, the best thing to do is going to be our website, U.S. Aviation Academy. They can visit that website. They can schedule discovery flights if they want to see if this is something that really fits their interests and something they want to move forward with. And we've got an abundance of options for them that can really take them no matter what their goal, if they want to become a private pilot or if they really want to go all the way and start looking at airlines in the future. We've got avenues that can accomplish all of that for them.
And they'll be here among those Air Force students.
They'll all be working in the same simulators and the same aircraft side by side with them all the way.
Awesome, awesome. How far along are these students here, by the way?
These gentlemen here, I think he is probably in our newest class that came in, so they're working on some pretty basic fundamentals of flight. They'll operate in that in the simulators before they'll go out and perform the same maneuvers in the aircraft. The goal being, by the time they hit the aircraft, they've had some experience and proficiency, and as Colonel Felice has mentioned, it kind of streamlines the process so we can get them in and out in that 139 days.
Absolutely, yeah, and that helps. That helps our Air Force out, get more pilots. I mean, there's a need out there, huh?
Absolutely. And so that's part of what we're looking to accomplish here is to streamline the process, get as many qualified pilots out to the Air Force as they can so they can move on to the more advanced training that follows this.
And it all starts in programs just like this here.
All right, let's do a left turn, 180 degrees. We're looking outside visually. Lower that nose just a little bit, right? Small corrections. Outside visually.
I feel like I'm in the cockpit with them, looking at how they're able to train on this.
Smaller corrections you're making. Yeah. Great. And you can see.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a video game, I guess, but much more. Obviously, much more at stake.
Much more sophisticated.
Yeah, absolutely. It's. Yeah.
I know someone's going to be like, I do Microsoft Flight Sim. I can do this.
No, it takes a lot more work. They want you. There's a lot more that goes into that. So I'm sure that's a good start. But you could always take that and become a real a trained pilot. But yeah, you still got to get ready for the real planes that are outside.
Amen. Well, Chris, thanks so much for giving us a look at this training and what's to come. Really exciting opportunity and a great way for someone to break into the industry. So, Chris Rosenthal, thanks so much for joining us live. I appreciate you. Okay, guys, coming up as we continue here, we'll keep following the latest as it relates to Minneapolis and the ICE shooting there. We're going to continue with some other stories, and that's straight ahead. Welcome in, everyone. I'm Ariel Onstadt. Thanks so much for joining us here live. As of right now, as we continue to watch and keep an eye on the unfolding situation in Minneapolis, we know that the Minnesota governor was holding a briefing just a bit ago talking about this shooting. I'd like to see if we can listen in. It looks like they are doing question and answer with reporters at this time.
I'm sorry.
What was it? Well, I said this yesterday. We've never been at war with our federal government. I think in this case that the National Guard is their main mission. They have a dual mission. There's the federal mission when they're under Title 10 orders, and then they're under Title 32 orders. In this warning order, there's nothing officially been done yet. If I am to activate them as the Commander-in-Chief of the Minnesota National Guard, I will issue the executive order to the Minnesota National Guard, and then they will be put in state duty status. And as you've seen over the last few years, that could be flood prevention, that could be after a wind-blowing storm up in the north, up in Bemidji, or it could be COVID or George Floyd response. In this case, again, it doesn't necessarily change the mission. They're there to protect Minnesotans. They're there to serve Minnesotans. I think the thing that is so challenging in the moment we're in is we don't see a desire to work with us on public safety. We hear a demonization of our state. We see people coming in who don't know our community, and we see this massive display for the TVs that we're trying to understand how is this coordinated. And some of you watch the videos on there, total chaos. And look, I have very limited work in this, is the training in the National Guard, but I've had a lot of training now to watch how our professionals operate. After this person was shot, federal agents milling around, touching the vehicle at a crime scene and things, I don't know what to tell you, and I don't quite know how to respond to the question other than my primary responsibility as governor is the protection of the people of Minnesota. And you can be assured, whether it's the State Patrol or whether it's the National Guard, their deployment is there to protect Minnesotans from whatever it is. If it's an act of nature, if it's a global pandemic, or in this case, if it is a rogue federal agent. I don't know at this time, and I want to be very careful. It's unprecedented that we have the federal government's already determined exactly what's happened here and the motives of an individual that we don't even know the name. They don't know the name, and that's very difficult. So, well, one more, Dana. Look, and I understand the uniqueness of this moment in this week, following this week, seeing what's happening in the backdrop of a show hearing in.
So we're listening in as Minnesota Governor Tim Walz addresses the ICE shooting there in Minneapolis. Now, I wasn't able to listen to the beginning of this news conference because I was live here with you guys, but I want to say, based on what he was discussing with reporters, it sounded like he is looking at how to activate the Minnesota National Guard in this situation. As he said, we have never been, his words, we've never been at war or opposed to the federal government. So on a state level, it sounds like the governor is pursuing options as it relates to keeping the citizens of Minnesota safe. His words. This is something we're going to continue to keep you updated on, as it is a very big, fluid, developing situation there on the ground. As of right now, a woman has been shot and killed by an ICE agent in an alleged car ramming attack. Agents say she was trying to ram her car at them, and they shot her in self-defense. But there are dueling narratives, as the governor and mayor of Minneapolis has said that based on the video that they watched, or at least the video that the mayor watched, he felt that ICE agents exceeded their power. So a story we're going to keep you updated on. The news is going to continue here at 4 o'clock.